When I say, well, who was that? They'll say, well, it was Jesus. No, it wasn't Jesus because Jesus was born much later on, but this is actually the proper term is a pre-incarnate appearance of the second person of the Trinity. So, or Christophany or a theophany, the angel of the Lord, right? And so you have the angel of the Lord there, and he's giving a message through the angel Gabriel to give to Daniel, and we saw that it came in the form of a vision. So this would be the last vision that's given to Daniel. He's about 90 years old at this time. Daniel never would return to the land of Israel. He would die in Babylon. And there's good historical evidence, excuse me, to suggest that later on, with the in the whole nativity scene, you know, when the Magi would come from the east, that actually Daniel was, one of the chief Magi. We're a group of people.
What?
Yes, yes. Uh, so we can get into that at some point in the future. But yes, definitely, Daniel was he was the head of the court, the Babylonian court, and then he would be elevated to the same position in the Persian court and would remain there to his death. And he was considered to be the actual head of the Magi school.
Didn't didn't he kind of rise to that under
Yes,
Nebuchadnezzar?
yes, he did. And so the and it's an interesting rabbit trail that um, I don't really want to get into, but you'll know that you'll remember in the nativity story that the uh, the uh, the wise men, right? I don't know why they say three. We don't really know how many there were, but they came because they saw his sign in the east, right? And so, the question is, what was that sign, and how did they know that it signaled the birth of a messianic king? Well, that would fall back to Daniel's knowledge of the scripture of the Torah, right? And so
Mhm.
that information is contained in the Torah. So presumably, it was something that he passed on, and later on, when the time was right, the Magi saw the sign that Daniel pointed to in the Torah, and they recognized that as a sign that the Messiah King was born, and they followed it to Bethlehem. So anyway, that's a rabbit trail for another time. So, getting back to Daniel 11. So, Daniel 11 now, after the introduction of 10, contains the 11 and 12 contain the contents of this final vision. All right. So, the first major section, chapter 11, verses 2 to 35 of the new revelation given by Christ, that's to Daniel through Gabriel, has been one of the most controversial portions of Scripture. After tracing in survey fashion four Persian rulers and Alexander the Great of Greece, the passage gave specific details concerning the Ptolemies of Egypt and the Seleucids of Syria. Because of the mass of specific details that have been fulfilled so accurately, critics have argued that this portion could not have been written in Daniel's day, right? And so, there's a wing of biblical scholarship that believes that Daniel's book was written much later due
Mm.
to the accuracy and the specificity of the historical prophecies given here in chapter 11.
Right. Like during the Maccabean period, right?
Yes. So while the history of the Seleucid and Ptolemaic kingdoms was interesting, its principal value to us is threefold. First, it demonstrates the incredible accuracy of these predictions, and they clearly demonstrate, sorry for the misspelling, that Daniel received this knowledge from God. Second, it gives us complete confidence that the rest of its prophecy is both accurate and can be trusted, right? And third, we see how the Lord controls these kings and kingdoms like pieces on a chessboard so as to accomplish his plan for Israel. And that is, you know, as we've looked at, the time of the Gentiles, that this is all part of God's plan to bring Israel back under the covenant. And in the meantime, extending salvation to the Gentiles as well. Right. And so you see God move through here. And so I've said this, I think I've said this several times, that when you see, God's intimate working with these kingdoms, we can trust that he, you know, is intimate working with these kingdoms according to his plan, according to his agenda. We can trust that God has that same type of care and concern and plan for us as individuals, right?
Oh yeah,
And so,
detailed.
yeah, it's very detailed, and so as we see, I mean, we know the end of the story, as far as Israel is concerned, right? But we see that between, the onset of the birth of that nation, with Abraham, to its culmination with the Messianic King ruling from Jerusalem, and in fact, Jerusalem becoming the capital city of the world,
Mhm.
and Israel becoming the chief nation of the world. We see a great deal of ups and downs, of pain, of trouble, of sad things, and that stands metaphorically as a big picture view of what we can expect to experience in our lives.
Mm.
Right? Our lives are full of ups and downs. It's not all positive, but we can trust, especially in those moments where that seem to be hopeless, that seem to be without solution, right? That seem to be the undoing of us. Uh, and, and that's what will get us through, is that we understand that He's working something out there, right?
Mhm.
And that's the hardest thing to keep in mind when you're undergoing suffering, you know? And suffering is something that we are commanded to submit to, right? And so we submit to the suffering in our lives with the knowledge and the faith that God is working something through that suffering. And I think if all of us, would drop back for a minute and think through those times, we would have to conclude that, truth be told, the greatest period of our spiritual growth occurred during times of suffering and difficult times, right?
Amen to that.
Yep.
Right? And so while we see, this, we see this suffering here that is taking place, and that is, prophesied to take place, upon God's people, Israel. We see that God is working a specific plan out, and we can see the specificity here in these historical prophecies that have been fulfilled. Okay. So when someone read verses 1 to 4 here, I've already talked a lot.
I'll do it.
Okay, Richard.
Of Daniel 11, right?
Daniel
What?
11 verses 1 to 4.
Okay. Also, in the first year of Darius the Mede, even I, stood up to confirm and strengthen him. And now I will tell you the truth. Behold, three more kings will arise in Persia, and the fourth shall be far richer than them all. By his strength, through his riches, he shall stir up all against the realm of Greece. Then a mighty king shall arise, who shall rule with great dominion and do according to his will. And when he has arisen, his kingdom shall be broken up and divided toward toward the four winds of heaven, but not among his posterity, nor according to his dominion with which he ruled. For his kingdom shall be uprooted even for others besides these.
Thank you, Richard. Okay, so let's take a look at these verses and what they're saying. So the historic timeline, so this revelation was given in 536 BC. Cyrus was the king of Persia, and Gabriel declared that after Cyrus, there would be three more Medo-Persian kings before the fourth successor. Cambyses, Pseudos, Meridus, and that guy Darius Hypostasis. And the fourth successor was Xerxes. Now, Xerxes, what was Xerxes gave a famous command in 445 BC. Does anyone know what that command was?
To go and build the temple?
Yes, he released the Jews to go back to the land and rebuild a temple, and that occurred somewhere around 445 BC, right?
That's
So
Nehemiah.
Nehemiah, that's right.
Nehemiah.
So he was the Persian king at that time. So anyway, he amassed great wealth and prepared a huge army for over 4 years to invade Greece in 480 BC, and the expedition ended in disaster. I'm a bit sketchy on my history, but didn't the Battle of Salamis take place during this time period? It was, one of the most famous naval battles in ancient history.
Hmm.
Is anyone familiar with that? The Battle of Salamis?
No.
I think it was.
I
think
don't know that. That would be a great Peter question.
I was just going to say, where's Pete when you need him?
Yeah, I think the Battle of Salamis took place during this war. Fascinating history.
So that would be
Pastor Rizzo,
Yeah.
that battle or that war with Greece, is that when they also had a naval battle where the Greeks actually closed up the channel and blocked the Persian Navy in, and they couldn't maneuver around against the smaller ships from Greece.
That was the Battle of Salamis.
Yeah,
480 BC
Battle of Salamis?
or 80 BC. That's what
Okay.
Wikipedia says.
All right. Just a fascinating, fascinating stories. And the, as the history goes, the Greeks actually built a bridge,
Yes.
right, across the channel
Yep.
with ships, right?
Yeah.
Something that our military still does. As a matter of fact, they did this in the D-Day invasion.
Yep.
They had to build these pontoon piers out into the water to get into
I seen
deep enough
those.
water to dock the big ships.
Yeah, they
So
sunk them.
the supplies.
They sunk them in place.
Yep. So anyway, after Xerxes, there were several kings. Gabriel traced the history of that kingdom's rulers only to the king who launched the attack against Greece for the following reasons. One, the attack by Xerxes against Greece was one of the motivating factors which led Alexander the Great to attack Medo-Persia almost 150 years into the future, and Gabriel uses Xerxes' invasion of Greece as the foundation for introducing Alexander, and then the verse 3 and 4 that Richard just read refer to Alexander.
hmm
Yeah. And his 4 kings. I mean, his 4 generals.
Yep. Okay, would someone read verses 5 to 20? I know it's a big chunk, but if someone would please read it, that would be great.
I'll give that a shot.
Thank you, Donna.
Also, the king of the south shall become strong, as well as one of the princes, and he shall gain power over him and have dominion. His dominion shall be a great dominion. And at the end of some years they shall join forces. For the daughter of the king of the south shall go to the king of the north and make an agreement. But she shall not retain power of her authority, and neither he nor his authority shall stand. But she shall be given up with those who brought her, and with him begot her, and with him who strengthened her in those times. But from a branch of her root shall one arise in his place, who shall come with an army, enter the fortress of the king of the north, and deal with them and prevail. And he shall also carry their gods captive to Egypt, and their princes, and their precious articles of silver and gold, and he shall continue more years than the king of the north. And the king of the north shall come to the kingdom of the king of the south, and shall return to his own land. However, his sons shall stir up great strife, and assemble a multitude of great forces, and one shall certainly come and overwhelm and pass through. Then he shall return to his fortress and stir up strife. And the king of the south shall move with rage, and go out and fight with him. And the king of the north, who shall muster a great multitude, but the multitude shall be given into the hand of the enemy. And when he has taken away the multitude, his heart will be lifted up, and he will cast down tens of thousands, but he will not prevail. For the king of the north will return and muster a multitude greater than the former, and shall certainly come at the end of some years with a great army and much equipment. Now in those times many shall rise up against the king of the south. Also violent men of your people shall exalt themselves in fulfillment of the vision, but they shall fall. So the king of the north shall come and build a siege around a mound, and take the fortified city, and the forces, and the south shall not withstand him. Even the choice troops shall have no strength to resist. But he who comes against him shall do accordingly to his own will, and no one shall stand against him. He shall stand in the glorious land with the destruction of his power. He shall also set his face to enter with the strength of his whole kingdom, and upright ones with him. Thus he shall do. And he shall give him the daughter of the woman to destroy, but she shall not stand with him, or be before him. And after this, he shall turn his face to the coastlands, and he shall take many. But a ruler shall bring the reproach against them to an end. And with the reproach removed, he shall turn back on him. And he shall turn his face towards the fortress of his own land, but he shall stumble and fall and not be found. There shall arise in his place one who imposes taxes on the glorious kingdom, but within a few days he shall be destroyed, but not with anger or in battle.
Okay, thank you. So this is jumping forward now. Alexander has come on the scene, and he dies, and his kingdom is divided among his 4 generals. You'll notice here only 2 of them are really part of this story, right? And so, because only 2 of them proved to be significant in the ancient world. All right. So there is a ton of stuff here, obviously much more than I can deal with, but I'm going to refer you back to Shower's book here. I highly recommend you go read those pages. So anyway, Gabriel gives details on how the Ptolemy and Seleucid kingdoms battle each other. The Ptolemaic kingdom occupied Egypt and extended up into southern Judea, and the Seleucid Empire occupied present-day Syria into northern Judea and extended east as far as India. And the border separating these 2 empires ran right through the middle of Israel, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So whatever was happening, so if you could imagine, the border between North Korea and South Korea.
Yeah, demilitarized zone, yeah.
So as these two empires battled back and forth for control, the front line ended up being Israel.
Yep.
So in those verses that we read, the Ptolemaic kingdom is the king of the south, and the Seleucid kingdom is the king of the north. So, as it says there, I really recommend that you go read pages 149 to 153 in this book because it gives a very detailed, that prophecy is so specific, it's incredible. So, there are two women that are mentioned in those verses. One is Bernice. She would be a daughter that would be, I think, from the from the king of the south, and she would marry into, the kingdom of the north, and there was all kinds of palace intrigue, and then, later on, another towards the end of those verses, it mentions another woman whose name is Laodicea, and the intrigue is incredible, but the specificity of that history in these verses is what causes many biblical scholars to say there's no way this could have been written in the time of Daniel. It must have been written much later because it so accurately describes what actually happened in the wars between these two kingdoms. So go
Wow.
through those pages. It's
Definitely.
4 pages, but you'll marvel when you see the accuracy and the specificity of what these verses are saying. Any questions or comments? All
Just to
right.
be sure, they don't believe it because they don't believe that God can predict the future.
Yep. Yeah. And they call themselves biblical scholars.
Yeah.
I actually just started into that part.
Yep. So, I've said this time and time again, and we are we're theoretical supernaturalists, but practical materialists, right?
Yeah.
So we have a constricted view of reality, right? For the time being, right? So we're we're confined to a three-dimensional realm, but the scriptures talk of 4 dimensions, right? And so, uh, but I think because we are constricted to a three-dimensional realm, we it doesn't seem like the spiritual realm or the reality of the spiritual realm all around us doesn't factor into our everyday lives, but it does more than any of us can really recognize. But the Bible says it's true, it's true. And
Yep.
anyway, all right. So now we get into, this guy, Antiochus Epiphanes, and Epiphanes is basically means God manifests, right? So this
Yep.
guy was a humble king, right? This is the name he gave himself, Antiochus Epiphanes. Interesting. It's interesting. I use a paint on my boat. Um, it's made by a company called Epiphanes. Hmm, that's interesting. I never noticed that. Anyway, would someone read verses 21 to 35?
I can read them.
Thank you, Shale.
You're welcome. Daniel 11:21-35.
Correct.
And and in his place shall arise a vile person to whom they will not give the honor of royalty, but he shall come in peaceably and seize the kingdom by intrigue. With the force of a flood, they shall be swept away from before him and be broken.
Oh, I think we lost the audio.
Oh dear.
I think we lost your audio, Shale. I'll pick it up from there. Let's see. Verse 22, with the force of a flood, they shall be swept away from before him and be broken, and also the prince of the covenant. And after the league is made with him, he shall act deceitfully, for he shall come up and become strong with a small number of people. He shall enter peaceably even into the richest places of the provinces, and he shall do what his fathers have not done, nor his forefathers. He shall disperse among them the plunder, spoil, and riches, and he shall devise his plans against the strongholds, but only for a time. He shall stir up his power and his courage against the king of the south with a great army. And the king of the south shall be stirred up to battle with a very great and mighty army, but he shall not stand. For they let's see, I lost my place.
26.
He shall devise plans against him.
Yeah, I lost my place because the printing is small. I should put my glasses on. Let me pick it up at verse 26.
Yep.
Yes, those who eat the portion of his delicacies shall destroy him. His army shall be swept away, and many shall fall down slain. Both of these kings' hearts shall be bent on evil, and they shall speak lies at the same table, but it shall not prosper, for the end will still be at the appointed time. While returning to his land with great riches, his heart shall be moved against the holy covenant, so he shall do damage and return to his own land. At the appointed time, he shall return and go toward the south, but it shall not be like the former or the latter. For ships from Cyprus shall come against him, therefore he shall be grieved and return in rage against the holy covenant and do damage. So he shall return and show regard for those who forsake the holy covenant, and the forces shall be mustered by him, and they shall defile the sanctuary fortress. Then they shall take away the daily sacrifice and place there the abomination of desolation. Those who do wickedly against the covenant he shall corrupt with flattery, but the people who know their God shall be strong and carry out great exploits. And those of the people who understand shall instruct many, yet for many days they shall fall by the sword and flame, by captivity and plundering. Now when they fall, they shall be aided with a little help, but many shall join with them by intrigue. And some of those of understanding shall fall to refine them, purify them, and make them white until the time of the end, because it is still for the appointed time. Okay, so this is basically the exploits of Antiochus, and he didn't succeed in his campaign against the kingdom of the south, and so he took out his rage on on Israel, right? And he took away the daily sacrifice. He defiled the temple. He sacrificed a pig on the altar, and he just made a mess. And he stands as a type of the one who is coming. And so these verses 21 to 35 serve mainly as a backdrop, the main thrust of the chapter, which is the character of the coming willful king. Okay, so again, there's a lot of historical information in there. And again, I want to refer you to this book, pages 154 to 158, and those pages give a complete breakdown of what all is being said from a historical perspective in those verses. Okay? All right. The coming willful king, verses 36 to 39. So now it shifts, right? Would someone read these verses?
I'll do it.
Go ahead, Al.
Okay. Daniel 11:36 to 39. Then the king shall do according to his own will. He shall exalt and magnify himself above every god, shall speak blasphemies against the God of gods, and shall prosper till the wrath has been accomplished. For what has been determined shall be done. He shall regard neither the God of his fathers, nor the desire of woman, nor regard any God, for he shall exalt himself above them all. But in their place he shall honor a God of fortresses, and a God which his fathers did not know. He shall honor with gold and silver, with precious stones and pleasant things. Thus he shall act against the strongest fortresses with a foreign god, which he shall acknowledge and advance its glory. And he shall cause them to rule over many and divide the land for gain.
Okay, so the key time factor is there as it talks about this king. It says that he shall prosper till the wrath has been accomplished, for what has been determined shall be done, right? And so this jumps into the future. So there is a great gap of time here. So many scholars, both ancient and modern, have been convinced that there is a great gap of time between the end of verse 35 and the beginning of verse 36. According to this view, verses 2 to 35 were fulfilled by the end of the days of Antiochus Epiphanes around 164 BC. But the prophecies beginning with verse 36 will be fulfilled by the Antichrist during the last several years leading up to the second coming of Christ. The reasoning for those views are as follows. From a historical perspective, there is nothing from the past that corresponds exactly with the prophecies beginning with verse 36. Next, the other prophetic passages which describe the Antichrist correspond exactly with the description of the king beginning in verse 36. Next, according to Daniel 12:1, during the time of the kings of verse 36 to 45, there will be a time of distress such as never occurred there since there was a nation until that time. And finally, Christ, later in the future, in Matthew chapter 24, indicated that this unique time of distress would transpire during the time period immediately before his second coming. Jesus therefore placed the fulfillment of Daniel 11, verses 36 to 12:3 into the future when Antichrist would rule. So it shifts. What do these verses tell us about this guy? And this is actually the last slide for the night. Gabriel's description of the willful king. 1, he will do as he pleases. 2, he will be an absolute dictator who will demand that he have his own way. 3, he will tolerate no restraints upon himself. 4, he will recognize no law or authority higher than himself. 5, he will intend to alter law. And there's a reference there to Revelation 13, 16, and 17, which talks about the coming time when no one will be able to buy or sell or do any business until they receive the mark of the beast, right? And so all of commerce at that time will hinge upon receiving that mark. 6, he will reject all forms of established law so that he can be the law of his kingdom. 7, he will be a blasphemer of the true God, speaking monstrous things against him to the point of astonishing people. Next, once he comes to power, he will prosper until the indignation is finished, until God's chastening program for Israel is finished at the second coming. He will show disregard for the gods that his ancestors worshipped. He will show no regard for the desire of women, right? So no physical desire for women. And there's been a lot of, a lot of talk about this, when I went through this uh, book at Grace Academy, I think it was 2 years ago. We got to this part, and the kid started asking me, "Does that mean he's going to be a homosexual?"
Yeah.
No, it just means he will have no interest in normal human sexual relationships. He's going to be so focused on his power, on seeking power, that he's not going to be interested in any kind of sexual relationship beyond what may be, yeah, uh, propitious to his extending his power. No regard for the Messiah. In the Old Testament, it was a common desire of women to be the mother of the Messiah. He will be an atheist rejecter of every form of established worship. He will exalt and magnify himself above every god, and he will honor an impersonal or strange god. And he will make war his god. He will be devoted to the conquest of the world. So that's this guy, the coming prince, the coming king. And I think, let me see, do I have another slide? Yep, one more slide. Daniel 11:40 to 45. And I'll read these. At the time of the end, the king of the south shall attack him, and the king of the north shall come against him like a whirlwind with chariots, horsemen, and with many ships. And he shall enter the countries, overwhelm them, and pass through. Well, I'll just stop right there for a minute. You'll notice here that this is clearly referring to the time of the end. Notice here that the king of the south is attacking him with chariots and with horsemen and with many ships, right? So that's kind of a statement to the state of technology uh, around this time period, right? He shall enter the countries, overwhelm them, and pass through. He shall also enter the glorious land, and many countries shall be overthrown, but these shall escape from his hand: Edom, Moab, and the prominent people of Ammon. He shall stretch out his hand against the countries, and the land of Egypt shall not escape. He shall have power over the treasures of gold and silver, and over all the precious things of Egypt. Also the Libyans and Ethiopians shall follow at his heels. But news from the east and the north shall trouble him. Therefore he shall go out with great fury to destroy and annihilate many. And he shall plant the tents of his palace between the sea and the glorious holy mountain. Yet he shall come to his end, and no one will help him. So historically, we know that verses 2 to 35 have already been fulfilled. In those verses, the king of the south was Egypt, and the king of the north was Syria. Inasmuch as Gabriel did not tell Daniel those kings are different than the kings of verse 40, it would appear that in these verses, these two terms are still referring to Egypt and Syria. In fact, we can read about this in Ezekiel 38 and 39. You can go there and look at that. And so at this time, Antichrist, due to his covenant with Israel, is Israel's protector. As he moves east from Rome, he will overrun and subdue those countries. Certain nations are providentially protected from his conquest. However, Egypt is plundered by his conquest. He will establish a base of rule from Israel. There he will come to his end without the aid of anybody. All right.
So Edom, Moab, and Ammon, that's Lot's descendants?
Yep. Yep. So they would be, well, they're up in the
That
north.
Transjordan?
Yeah. Yep. So, all right. Well, there's a ton of information there. Again, I want to refer you to those sections that I jumped over to Shower's book, and then chapter 12 actually continues the vision forward. So we're kind of stopping midstream here. The campaign of Antichrist is beginning here, and then chapter 12 gets into greater detail and actually expands upon what it says here, that he will come to his end and no one will help him. Takes us into the second coming, takes us into that time period called the 75-day interval. And, we'll talk about that next week. And the initiation of the millennial kingdom. So,
All right.
None.
all right. So, see, I told you we'd get done early tonight.
Mhm.
And again, um, let me know what your thoughts are on continuing the study in Romans, because I'm going to base whether I go forward with that or not on the kind of response I get to it. And because I'm going to be culling the list down. So, because I don't want to be sending out emails and bothering people with emails, who just are really, for one reason or another can't do this. So let me know, and then, we'll see
Okay.
where we're at next week, and we'll talk about the future. All right.
Great.
Any other questions? Al, would you close us with a word of prayer?